But the paradigm that we have been taught from birth is you got to work for it. In other words, it isn't in there, it's over there. And I've got to take a course there and a course there and a course there and a course there. I'll cobble them together. I'll practice a lot. I'll do this and that. And pretty soon, perhaps I'll get it. You cannot describe the human experience as just biology unless you also include consciousness. I want to give our listeners something that perhaps you did not understand, that is only just starting occurring and being revealed in a way that we can explain it. And here it is. What if I told you that diamond expansion, you're born with it? It comes in with you. You are completely and totally, fully equipped for mastery. When out of your mom's womb, this is who you are.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and this is just an absolute delight to have these incredible beings on the podcast today. I want to welcome Monika and Lee Carroll, Kryon, from the Kryon Studios. I don't think there's any more introduction necessary, but we can get into that. Welcome to the podcast today, my dear friends.
So wonderful to be here, San Qing. Wonderful.
Yes, I agree. We do this with people like you, and we just love what we're doing. This is not a task for us. This is a treat.
And if anyone is tuning into this, oh my gosh, just so you know, we are soul family. Mm-hmm. And just your being here on the planet, wow. What an honor that we get to be here in these most extraordinary times.
I'd love to interview the host sometime, because you've got a story here that most people probably know it, but it really is for our time.
Yeah. I would love that at some point. I'd love to spend more time with you guys. It's so exciting. Why don't we get started? For my audience, I know you've probably heard this and asked this 1,000 times, how you guys got together, and really the moment that Lee was like hit with a runaway train that made him realize that he was a catalyst and conduit to this incredible energy that he's sharing with the world and has been for decades.
We would. I do this in 2 sections, and I'll make it more soundbitey, because I know we'll get out to other things. But literally, it was. I'm an engineer, and in my mid-40s, this happened to me. There was a story. I was skeptical. Literally, I threw down a gauntlet to Spirit to say, "Leave me alone, or show me what I should know." I sat down in a chair. On a scale of 1 to 10, meaning the ability to feel and sense, I would say the love of the creator, if you want to call it that, I got an 11. Right there in my chair, I started weeping. I realized it was new. There was things to know. 3 years later, I started channeling. You don't recover from that. It's almost like you're touched. You get awakened. You realize there's something bigger than you ever thought. And you're just overwhelmed at absolutely everything. And I had my life until 13 years ago. This happened, by the way, this was 36 years ago. 13 years ago, a woman walked into a room. I was in Chile giving a seminar, and Monika was also in Chile to receive some training and some energy work from a friend of ours who works with us. And when I saw her, I shook. It was like, what is here? Besides the attraction of a man-woman thing, which is always there, what else am I feeling? Because it was way beyond that. Now I know she is my spiritual partner, my twin flame, and that's a story that she'll tell her side of it. But now she is part of this work in a very profound way, a way that I had only dreamed of, to have a partner that would help me like this and be with me. Monika, what's your take on that?
Well, I think that this phrase that life is happening for you, not to you, is evidenced by my own story, because when my marriage ended and I was so devastated, you wouldn't think that was a life is happening for you moment. But it's only through the passage of time that you really realize, oh my gosh, everything that does occur and happen, life is happening for you, because that event, it actually set me on my spiritual path. I was working as a ranger in the national parks in Australia. Wasn't interested in anything spiritual, but a dear friend of mine kept saying, you should go see my wife, Linda. She does Reiki and she's a spiritual healer. I didn't want to go there, but every time he saw me, I was so miserable and crying. And finally, when he gently said, you should go see my wife, Linda, I was screaming in my head, okay, I'm going to go see Linda just so you will stop telling me to go. And then, of course, when I went and saw Linda, the love and compassion that she had and the experiences I had on the table, which were outside of my 3D experiences, and yet I knew they were real, it catapulted me on my journey. I moved to New Zealand. The first yoga class I was in, I was given a book of Kryons. In that book, there was a chapter from a lady called Peggy Phoenix Dubrow. She is an energy worker. She does EMF balancing technique. And that led me to Chile in South America, which is, of course, where I met Lee. And so life is happening for you in ways that we can't even imagine when we take the time to drop into our heart area and try and find the purpose or the truer meaning of what this could be about, because that's really what I did when my marriage ended and I wanted to take ownership for part of that journey and why it was happening and what was there to discover. Why did that occur? And what else was there for me? I never could have imagined meeting this beautiful soulmate of mine that I still pinch myself in the mornings when I wake up thinking, I just love you so much. And before I got on the plane, when I went to South America, I had the intention, I'm going to meet my soulmate. I am going to find that person. But I had no idea that it would be Lee Carroll. And so
by the way,
that's
this
the
time
story.
Sometimes in the morning I pinch you first, just so everybody has this clear.
Yeah. So I feel it was Kryon that actually brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2012 is where I was living in South America at that stage. And I really felt this urgency of sharing Kryon's information about our planet Earth with the world. And so that's where I started writing the Gaia effect, which is taking all of the channelings, because Lee's been channeling now for 36 years, and there's such a wide variety of topics that Kryon has delivered to us. And my specialty, if you will, is that I love to organize things, categorize things. And so I was pulling together all the channels based on subjects. And the subject of Gaia, our planet Earth, is that we are deeply connected to the sentience of the Earth, which is connected with us in very deep ways. But I never knew about this as a ranger. I would just see the environment and how terrible the humans are at destroying this beautiful Mother Earth, never realizing that Earth is here in partnership with us as we awaken to our true nature. And as more of us awaken, there is a deepening of that relationship with the Earth that's going to eventually flow into everybody. And when we all have that awareness of our truer selves, all of those environmental problems will go away. We will find the solutions for that and more. And so that's really where I fit into the work with Kryon. And then Lee and I together, we are able to bring out even newer aspects of what Kryon's message is to all of us. And Kryon's message is that You are loved beyond measure. You are never alone, and you are here on purpose. You're not here as a victim. You are here as part of a love test. And boy, we have made it through that love test. Humanity is coming through that test with flying colors, and we're just waiting on everybody else to catch up.
Wow. Well, I mean, you start to hear that more and more in the messaging from what you would consider a spiritual community. And I think that it's so heartfelt when you guys share it with me and the audience. I feel all my students love listening to these conversations because it's an experience. It's not just spoken words or identity or a theory of something. You're experiencing this visceral feeling, and it's sort of like ascends as you continue to merge with this more than conceptual, but the feeling is the experience of knowing, in my opinion. I always tell people, if you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. And that really embodies that frequential sort of state that I think a lot of people talk about so much today, but there's not as much evidence for them to help them ascend to that level to acquire that. Because, I mean, I can feel and experience everything you're saying, and it's 1000% just, I'm just bathing in it. Yet a lot of people will talk about these things, and it's love. That's the answer. And I think the three of us would agree that is the truth. Yet it's subjective until otherwise noted. It's kind of like, you know what you know, you don't know what you don't know. And I think the story about how Lee said that he was like, I need to know. You got to give me an answer, give me a sign, and that true surrender. And in some ways, I think people would call it a sacrifice of just allowing yourself to be free from the limitations of the human condition, yet you're returning back to it. I think a lot of people think that's a paradoxical thing. It's like, well, Jifu, you're not making sense to me. You're telling me that I have to surrender, but then what about the human condition? Well, first and foremost, the human condition is a construct of human condition because it's a limitation. Humanity and that merging with Earth that you were speaking of, Gaia, as you speak of, is so beautifully articulate, and the messaging is just incredible. Everything that you guys say, I'm just floating on the words and I'm experiencing it because it's so powerful, because that is the true knowing. When you're in this space and you start ascending to that level of unity that people talk about, that's what I call primordial mother, which is acquiring that state where you are the vesica point. You're in the center of everything. That means that we look at things like a bellows as a Taoist. Everything is contracting and expanding at the same time. Everything. You are all things and nothing at the same time, which is the paradoxical mind screw that a lot of people get into. But understanding that when you return to the primordial nature of breath, the center point between yin and yang is the primordial mother, the vesica. So when you hold that breath is where you access the true essence of all things, the unification of everything, and it consumes itself, it constructs itself, and you shape what we call the diamond of perfection. So the more condensing of that breath creates this visceral effect, and you are acquiring that resonance through the frequential vibratory state of energy. And that's where you really get excited, because now your Sherlock to your Watson, that crumb of excitement, that desire of wanting more is coming through you. It's a sign of divinity, and you're experiencing it just as we are now. It's like an oscillating, expansive state. So you had me at hello. I don't know.
I want to expand everything, if you don't mind, for just a moment.
Yes.
You talk about the diamond of expansion. Everything you said, you talk about the human experience. You cannot describe the human experience as just biology unless you also include consciousness. I want to give our listeners something that perhaps you did not understand, that is only just starting occurring and being revealed in a way that we can explain it. And here it is. What if I told you that diamond expansion, you're born with it? It comes in with you. You are completely and totally, fully equipped for mastery. When you went out of your mom's womb, this is who you are. This is what we have been told. And the human condition, including what you're taught, your culture, what you think you are, all of these things, is the filter then gets in the way of all of that. And then we all start trying to rediscover it, reframe it, and find out what we're now realizing. Hey, it's in there. Somehow it's in there. But the paradigm that we have been taught from birth is you got to work for it. In other words, it isn't in there. It's over there. And I've got to take a course there and a course there and a course there and a course there. I'll cobble them together. I'll practice a lot. I'll do this and that. And pretty soon, perhaps I'll get it. I want you to think of something else. What if it was already there? And all the things that you are learning about how to get there is like peeling the onion of yourself so you can get to that core majesty that is already there. You're magnificent, born magnificent. I had trouble with that because I was trained out of that as a kid in church. I was born dirty. I didn't deserve to know the creative source, whatever you want to call it, God, Spirit. I was not worthy of any of that. You have to go through somebody else to get to somebody else because God won't look at you if you want to call it God. All of these things go into my brain. There's no delete key in your brain. It goes and it stays. Time is the same way. And you're talking about to a time master here next to me, not Monika, but our Taoist priest. And he knows. And that is the fact that you can remember things, no matter if you're a senior listening to this, you can remember things when you were 10, if you're lucky, and they seem like yesterday because there's no chronology in your brain. It doesn't work like a clock does. Everything was yesterday. That ought to clue you into who we are. That is the timeless oneness state that we are all born in, that we are now starting to reveal. It's not that hard to capture what is already there instead of having to go over there and take courses and dig for it and hope you got it right. It's there. So what you need now is to understand how to sit and be loved. That's number one. Number two, to get to that place biologically where you allow it. And you have a reference. My goodness, we have so many who are able to sit and let us feel what we don't want to feel. I think one of my channels coming up is going to be, Are You Afraid to Be Loved? Because our society kind of pushes it away. It really does. What if it was always there? And the mastery that is being taught today through the channeling, through the training, all of that is about how can we take our biology and tune it up to get what is already there that is magnificent, beautiful, sacred, compassion, kindness, all of these things that are there just waiting for the filters to be removed.
That is absolutely perfection. I mean, this returns me to what I teach people, which is helping them understand that their participation is not required to remember who they are, to return to who they are, to know who they are. That some of the guardrails and the labyrinth that's created is nothing but the biological time frame of the human condition that will only be revealed right back to, as I said, the breath. You can have it instantaneously. You are already whole. And that realization then returns to simplicity. Oh, well, I don't believe I am. Okay, so there's always a method. I always call it a method to the madness. And this requires sort of a sort of summary of how you would perceive reality and how you acquire that. And I sometimes refer to it as, a physics model of understanding, which would be light to wave to matter to particle realized with your attention, intention, forming and cutting from the cloth of perfection, dukkha, as my dear friend, the Buddhist monk would say, distortion, which comes in this currency that we allow ourselves to experience, which is within this dualistic perspective. We call this energy. You have now formed this energy to create different vibratory frequential states, and that resonance, if held, will be realized. Well, your resonance is perfection. You may have had a few distortions leading up to that realization. And once you sit with incredible beings like yourselves, it becomes quite evident that you're returning home to who you really are. You're already whole because you can experience. It's a visceral, kinesthetic, somatic experience that is second to none. And I feel that it's most important for people to really refine their sensory perception so that they can be aware that maybe you might be in a place where you think that you're not at the highest point of awareness mentally, emotionally, physically. It never leaves you. You may be distracted for a second, but it's always there, and it only takes a breath to return to it. And all the incredible material that you guys put out makes it possible for people to have that experience at will, really. I mean, all they have to do is follow your material and get high as a kite and return to who they are, because it's in every single offering that you share. Just this conversation, you already know this, but for anyone else, you're not officially channeling yet, but I mean, you are channeling. You have a frequency that is just jacking me up. My heart's about to explode because there is so much love in the room, and it is real. It is tangible. And we call this sort of within Taoism, the immortal's path and return to self-realization through the crystalline alchemy. And so, I always tell people, it's like everyone has a different way up the mountain. You could just realize this by our conversation and have an epiphany and be fully realized in 5 seconds, which is what I want for everybody. But perhaps there may be a path. And I think the reason I went down the Taoist path of alchemy is because I had to make sense of most of the things that I experienced at the beginning of my journey many decades ago that had to validate. And through my teacher, Lao-Tzu, he guided me on the way. And this way, it gives someone an anchor to anchor themselves into, okay, this is not a transitory psychological effect. This is real. It is absolutely 100% real. And that's a part that I think a lot of people are still conflicted with because of the amount of information. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a phrase from Kryon that says it's not about doing, it's about being. And everything you said comes back to that phrase where you're saying to take a breath and you come back to that place where we are. For years, I found it hard to understand what Kryon meant. What is this not about doing, it's about being? And it really is about radiating and being in the core state of what Lee described you already have within you. And then Lee mentioned many of us, we don't know how to feel and accept love and true love of the divine that is being broadcast to us 24/7. And I remember Kryon giving us a channel where it really helped me to be able to receive more love in that place of just being rather than doing. Because often we get trained that we have to do things in order for people to like us or love us. And yet, When a baby is born into this world and you look at that baby, particularly if you're the parents, and all you see is this beauty, this innocence, this fresh from the other side of the veil, filled with the Creator's energy. It's fresh from that through the birth of wind, and you're holding this baby or anyone that's around that newborn. There is this sense of deep love and appreciation for that baby. It hasn't done a single thing except to be born onto the planet. You too came onto the planet as that baby. You had nothing to do. Your presence alone was simply enough to evoke so much love coming towards you. And that's the feeling that I've been able to carry with me when Kryon says it's not about doing, it's about being. And how much love can you receive? How much love will you allow yourself to receive? There's nothing for you to do in order to earn this love. It's simply being broadcast to you 24/7. And again, as Lee said, we have filters that get in the way of us receiving it. And it's about peeling the onion to get back to that core. I may have gone a little off topic of what your question was.
Absolutely not. I think it's reinforcing all the things that we're talking about, because it comes back around to love, which is that frequency, but it's conceptual until otherwise known. You know what you know, you don't know what you don't know, which reveals this idea of programming and filters that you speak of, and how to merge the conscious and unconscious and make it your control panel, really, because the control panel is love. And everyone gets, some people like, really, you're going to say that one more time, Jifu? I'm like, you'll know when you're ascended. And they're like, most of them are like, well, I want to learn this stuff. I want to be able to levitate and heal people and give them electric shocks. And these are all parts of the side effects of alchemy. I think they're exciting, but there's a certain point when once you hit that point, you expand. And I will always be a little bit apprehensive when I see a student that gets obsessed with just one level of awareness. It's like, oh, I just let me stay here for a little bit longer. There's a deficiency in what it is that you're experiencing that puts you in a state where you have to be obsessed with one level of expansion. You'll continue, you'll be whole, you'll return. And so a lot of people tend to get concerned by those types of things. And I said, you'll know. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, because you will be selfless and you'll be in service and you won't have to think. As you put it, you will just be this present moment. It will not be a struggle where your finite mind will want to manipulate things because it has nothing to offer. You will expand from that because you're using your heart. You're not thinking with your head. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to return to something you said, because we're teaching, we have actually two sections, I would say, are subjects in our channeling through these last years. And one is obviously the awakening phenomenon that we're speaking of. The other one, the profound one, is timing. You spoke of having to show people what reality was 30 years ago, 36 years ago. That's the hardest one. The hardest one for me, the hardest one to teach is this all just woo-woo crazy stuff that nobody's feeling, and we're on the moon and, thinking whatever we are, and we're out of our bodies floating around, and we're new age folks. Nothing to do with the reality of going to work. That is what we had to struggle through. I was one. You went to the Taoist side. I don't know what side I went to, but I'll tell you, this was the struggle. How real is this? And how can I show people that The only way I had back then is come to a Kryon meeting, experience the energy, see if you feel it. There was nothing else. There was no online. There was no email even back then. There was only a fax machine. And I'm not faxing energy to people. We had an issue with the culture, the technology back then. But there was a prophecy of the timing to come. We all knew about it. Something was going to happen in the year of the 2000s, whether you're looking at Holy Scripture or whether you're looking at the indigenous, they all targeted it to now. That's another story. We show that in our work. And we are starting to experience something else, a change of reality for the young people. Now, this is not the first podcast we've done. We find ourselves with a list of podcast requests. And the ones that we normally find ourselves on a regular basis that we're so attracted to are with young people. I'm talking about under 40 young people who have these podcasts, which are followed by tens of thousands of other young people who are asking the question that we are asking today. I mean, this is what we always wanted. Client said someday the consciousness will start to shift and change. History will not repeat itself. It's coming, and get ready for it. We're here. We're having an earth awareness, you would say, light and dark change. That is why I'm here. That is why I am so excited to be here and do what I do, because we are starting to see a change in what reality dictates to us. There are so many who are coming into this planet right now as younger people who are ready to say, yes, that's okay. So, it doesn't sound strange to me. I can be out of my body. I can be two places at once. You can? It took me a long time to even get there to tell others that it was possible. And you're telling me you're doing it? Yeah, I'm doing it. And then they start talking about the other things they're feeling and the compassion that's coming in, and how they're starting to treat people different because they're finding love, and they won't be even aware of channeling or Kryon or anything. They found me somehow. I'm on their show and with Monika, and we're talking the same story. We are allied in what's going on in love. So you might say there's an explosion right now of enlightenment. That's an explosion in what people are starting to feel they are feeling themselves, not what they're taught, not what somebody's pointing the finger at them, telling them they should do. They're waking up in the morning and asking, is there more? And it brings them to a place right now where they're starting to awaken to the things that we have known and taught and worked on ourselves for more than 3 decades. That is the excitement that I have to share with this listening group. It's everywhere. It's not Lee and Monika's work anymore. It's not the Kryon work. It is expanded to everybody's work. I mean, we're seeing it so much all over, so many places that we can't even describe, and we are smiling to ourselves. The names are different, the nomenclatures are different, but all, when you boil it down to the essence of what they are discovering, it's what we've been teaching for years: mastery. And there it is.
And absolutely agree 100%. I mean, if I look back 30 years ago, I was on the verge of possible psychotic episode because I couldn't understand the magnitude, progression over 5 days of many different things. Anyone who wants to hear the story, they can listen to it on the internet. The bottom line is when you pass through that and you look at 30 years ago, where most people would be very concerned and confused by their mental emotional state. Today, 30 years ago, someone would come to me with this disturbance looking for answers. And we'd go through different levels of, as you put it, unravel the onion and help them restore their true sense of who they are, return to who they are. And now, today, that same person will wake up one day and say they're channeling the Palladians, open a YouTube channel and get 100,000 followers. I think it's amazing. But there are many people that are I would say the only caveat to that, and I'm not a fear-based guy, because you cannot have fear. If you are me, I am you, and love is the true currency of this whole experience, there's no such thing. It just doesn't amount to anything. Yet you construct whatever you construct within your belief system, and that belief system becomes a knowing through your experiences. So the experiential moment is what determines what you validate as true. Your truth is only validated through your experience. Mm-hmm. So if you have a bad day and you are experiencing bad things, then that's valid. You can't dismiss that. But how do you move through that with this new world order? Quite frankly, one of my dear friends, James Tunney, who's a scholar from Ireland and a devout Catholic and very much deep into, you mentioned dark and light. Within Taoism, we just look at it as yin and yang. Yin is the absorption of all colors, and yang is the emission of all colors. And then when you find that center point, you merge the two together, and this is the unification of everything, and you are whole again. You have returned to that truth, which can happen instantaneously. And I think that's the beautiful part about children. I mean, I've got 6 children of my own, and the youngest is 1 and the oldest is 12. And they instantly, and do a healing, remote viewing, all this kind of stuff, because I teach them all this stuff. And it's just instant. It's like, I don't even have to go, do I need to sort of tune myself up? I'll be like, I'll just ask my 12-year-old, can you just give me a charge? I'm feeling a little low. And he'll just return me to within a second. But I think that you made a valid point, Lee, is that this part about separating the individual is still very sobering right now, because AI, in my opinion, is not an offering to humanity as a good thing. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I mean, it's dismissing creativity, which is the currency of a human being, and we're all creators. And the more that you merge with AI, the more you are dismissed in the value of your creativity, because it's showing you the first thing that it dissolved was creating art, creating images, creating literature, all this stuff is now, I just hit a key and it's all given to me in 3 seconds. That's not really of much value. I mean, so you're human. You're just you were a creator, but now you're nothing. So start to diminish that, and then you move into transhumanism. And that sounds sort of normal because, young children are playing these games and they're separating themselves from the human, the empathy through video games and all the things that are going on in the world. And I think there's nothing more important than the movement that you guys are nurturing and have for many decades, and the importance of sharing this frequency with the world to help raise it up. And it's interesting. You say 2025 for a Taoist, that's the highest point. So it's 9 of 9. It's the year of 9 for a Taoist, which is the highest point of ascension. It's the compression of the perfection of the diamond, and it results within a numerology sort of state. Any polymath will tell you 9 will turn into 1 or 0. It can be either. And so that's the power of numerology from this incredible year. And my teacher has always said, hey, look, this is sort of like a state where he talks mostly in currency. He'll talk about what's going on in the universe, because that's really what happens with planet Earth and the human being, their relationship with that. So when I speak to people, unless it's specific and they want to ask a question, well, Lao-Tzu will always remind them that it always comes back to your universe and what's inside you and how it replicates what's outside of you. And those frequencies are constantly moving and changing, and you can see the highs and lows of that. But for 2025, it's going to be nothing but a magnitude of love. I don't see it any other way. There's a frequency that's going to raise the actual human resonance of the earth and maintain it. And what he's saying, between 40 and 60 hertz within the next, yet last year was this way. So the next 12 months, we're raising that frequency, which then affects the human brain waves, which keeps you in that state of awareness of being conscious as just consciousness, not as just this sort of
the raising of that also involves the planet. We can't forget that, because that's our partner in absolutely everything.
Right.
I want to return to the numerology we teach, we believe in. It's a little bit different kind, but the various systems that we study are extremely similar. We are looking at Tibetan numerology. That's the one I learned from my mentor. 9 is completion, and that has always been that way. So yeah, 9 is probably one of the most special numbers I want to draw. That and 6. So we have in the 9s, everywhere we have, it is a completion of an old energy that has been building up to complete into what we are starting to see, and that is a completely new picture. And Kryon has given us a sample, and I think you're going to like this too, because it falls into this whole idea of timelessness. When you're in a certain kind of dark light relationship, and I know that you said the yin and yang, you have perhaps too much of one or enough of another, and you're trying to find the center. It works with the earth as well, with consciousness of the human race as well. And we have been in I would say, a darker state for so long that time has repeated itself. Now, there are a couple of books on this. If you want to read them, Greg Braden has one where you actually look at it. Is it possible that time as we know it is in a circle? It's actually stuck. In other words, we continue to repeat the same dysfunctional things, expecting a different experience, the definition of dysfunction. And you take a look at it, and you take a look at it just human history. If you're a historian, look at the number of wars we've had, what makes them happen, how we repeat that scenario, how the technology simply gets better for killing people, and we continue doing it. I mean, the last 2 wars we had were just a continuation of each other. We got tired, had to take a rest, and it was the same countries involved in the same dispute. Here we go again. So you take a look at this and you go, we're doomed. I mean, we're just going to keep repeating history, and everybody expects another war and World War III, and it's going to be the end. And Kryon said in the first book in 1989, get ready to change tracks. If you think of a train in a circle, get ready to, in the years of 2000s and before, to actually have a siding that you can take if you want to. And humanity has said yes. That's another story. And we are on that new track. This is a future we have never been on before. This is a reality that we have never seen before. We're not going over the same material, the same track, the same realities. And in that, we are presented with unknowns. You don't know what you don't know. In that, sometimes there is fear. You're right. If you have fear of any kind, it shuts off your light. It shuts off your love. Fear cancels love. As long as you're there, you can recover from it. We all have it. It's human nature to go to a fear for a moment or two. There's really good methods of coming out of that and getting back to the real you, instead of going down the rabbit hole of despair and doom, which a lot of people think that's what they have to do. You don't. You're magnificent. You're born magnificent. Your body will self-balance. If you allow it, you can help it to self-balance. But this whole idea that we are not our grandfather's world is the new teaching that we are seeing. And that is shown by the new people. We're back to this, the young people who are coming online and starting to not have the issues they had before, and not no problems with them going out of body or even the channeling. Channeling was really something that was unique to a few 36 years ago. I didn't want to do it because I knew everybody I would lose my friends. I said, if I start this, I'm going to lose my friends. I probably will lose my job. I probably will this and that. And I was afraid of that. And by the way, all of those things happened, and something better replaced them. And that's another story. Can you, with your consciousness, shape your future? Well, if you truly are multidimensional and time is past, present, and future all at once, all the time, you are currently shaping your future right now, no matter what you know, whatever you think, with your intent, your consciousness, and what you affirm and who you are. That changes what happens tomorrow in 3D. But you can change it today in that multidimensional place that you exist in. Now, that may be fun, a kind of fun talk that people say, well, I got to know more about that. Okay, but if you start learning that, you've got to agree to change your reality, be in a different place, and pay attention. You can't just, I'll fold my arms and tell me about it. Those days are gone. We cannot teach enlightenment. You have to experience it and have a willingness to go there. But I will tell you, absolutely promise you, the moment you say, yes, I want to know, I really want to know, things start happening. Things start changing. That's that free will part that you've heard about humanity spiritually all your life. That we have to ask for in a way that we're asking ourselves. I am Lee. When I was an engineer, I really had to ask this. Do I want to know more about something that is amazingly incredible, that I know is real, but if I go there, will it change me? And that was the fear that I had. And so I had to agree with myself. Yes, I want to know more. I will then. I don't want to. Surrender is a bad. That sounds like you had a battle and you're surrendering to the victor. What you're doing is you're allowing the bigger you to come in. So it's an energy of allowance, not necessarily surrender. But when you allow that, you start to push away all of the consensus reality that you learned, and you're going, oh, that's not what I learned. That's a lot better. And it starts to stick, and it starts to be you and your reality. So I know I've gone off topic too.
I do love how you repostured your surrender to allowance, but I actually find for me sometimes surrender works for me because, and I'll tell you why, because I often will have resistance to something. So whenever I find that there is resistance, this is where I want to surrender my resistance, and when I can get to that place, I will allow. So clearly you have that more mastery where you don't need to surrender your resistance. You just go straight to allowance.
When you know something is absolutely real, when you know it is real, it changes your perspective on how you treat it. If you're pushing against something you're not sure is real, you're not going to get the same results. So we're dealing with how real is it to you, and what can you do to actually make it more real. And once you get to that place when you know I don't understand it, but it's real. It's behind that door over there, and the door has my name on it. I'm going to open it slowly.
And there's really those three things that Kryon shares with us. The first one is intent. What is your intent? And then the phrase Kryon always gives is, dear spirit, if you're there, show me. And then following from intent is belief, because often you can give that intent, but if you have a belief, it's really not going to work, or I've been programmed for this, this, and this, and this, sometimes that belief will actually interfere with your intent. So, and then the third thing Kryon says is the allowance for something beyond what you could even expect or believe is possible. So that summary there is intent, belief, and allow.
I mean, it's amazing how the information just comes through in a million different ways that people embrace their own journey. I always tell people there's a million ways up the mountain, and once you dismiss someone else's belief system, you dismiss your own. So there's no right or wrong way. It's a journey of self-mastery through that seeking. We call it a Taoist seeker to a Taoist knower. And it normally starts with inquiry to contemplation. Curiosity forms hope. Hope develops belief. And from that belief, you nurture that into a knowing through the experiential moment. that can be the only way that it is true to you. Everything is just talking heads for most people. And I think that's most important, that you can master that. And that's why we talk about crystallizing immortality within this material. And so you take perfection, the primordial mother, and you crystallize it into a material state where you have self-validation, whether it's manifestation, magic, healing. There's a point where you hit what we call the Wu Ji, which is the primordial mother. And if you can hold that resonance, which is a resonance, then you access what we call is the Wu Wei, effortless action, effortless effort. And people are like, that doesn't make any sense, Jifu. I said, well, guess what? The effortless action is the breath. Once you obtain the breath, you are accessing the primordial mother. You have access to all things. It is instantaneous. You don't have to wait for a single thing. It is now. The only thing that is important is the present moment. And this is the most important thing for anyone's journey, is to come to that realization and to return to whole and to keep repeating it so that you can see it for yourself. I just love the way you guys have just crafted Kryon's message, because it is so powerful. Everything that you guys teach brings people back to their true knowing and returning to who they are, which is the path of Taoism. A lot of people, well, is it a religion? Is it philosophy? What is it? Well, it's half a dozen, 1/6 of the other. It's however you want to, as a Taoist priest, I could teach you the deep nature of ritual through lineages. I think it helped me understand things, but truly most of the teaching that I give people is through my teacher, Lao Tzu, and it cannot be validated without the experience. And when you get that and you're able to apply it to your reality, and it comes in that form where you remember that you are whole, it never left you, then it will continue to present itself over and over again. And it will be undeniable. And after the 47th coincidence, they go, oh, I think we've got something here. I think there's something going on.
It takes some longer than others.
And you know what? That's completely okay. I love it. It's like everyone has this, well, it's this way, and you need to find love and all these things. It's conceptual until otherwise noted. And I think people need to understand that my journey is not your journey. Your journey is not Mary Lou's journey. It's all an individualized experience to return to who you are. And it's absolutely perfection. It always is. As Lee put it, you're magnificent. You're perfect. I mean, I just get, you had me at hello about an hour ago, and I'm just I'm buzzed out of my mind right now. I want to ask you, before, I know we have a limited time, I want to ask you, do you measure things from an energetic potential level? Is that part of your experience when you channel Kryon? Because when I first channeled Lao Tzu, I rolled up to this guy. Back in those days, we had these things called classifieds. My kids are like, what is a classified? Well, it's in a thing called a newspaper. And I was looking for direction. I had no idea what I just experienced. I just had a meditation for the first time. I went from complete tangibility, from physicality as a bodybuilder for over 10 years. And all of a sudden in my head, a voice said, you need to go and find meditation. Now, everyone here in this audience right now knows that back in those days, that was Hare Krishnas and yogis, and no one made sense of that. It was like, I don't even know what that is. So for me, I was like, I have no idea what that is. I know it's kind of weird woo-woo. And so I went to a meditation class. This grandmaster was there, and I had this 5 minutes, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to do this. I'm an overgrown ape trying to sit in a lotus position. I'm in a lot of pain. There's no way I'm going to get this meditation thing. I mean, there was noises outside the whole thing. After 1 second, she literally, I'm sitting down and she came up to here, and there was half a dozen misfits in the room, just beggars can't be choosers. It's like it was free. It was in the classified, what the heck, some grandmaster. And And I was like, this is not going to work for me. And she goes, listen to my voice. And I'm like, yeah, my back's killing me. There's sound going on. There's noise in the background outside, and everything will fall away. And in that same second, guys, she started, and I had my eyes open, and I went, holy moly. And for 15 minutes, there was complete silence, and this woman was just going on. I didn't even know what she was talking about because it was stillness. And I was like, I don't care about this bodybuilding stuff. I'll crush things and throw things. I want to merge myself with whatever this power is. It is unbelievable. And then I went on my journey, and I did a channeling class the next day. And that's when I channeled Lao-Tzu. And this guy was not too happy with that. He was on a 60-year journey of teaching people channeling. And he was just like, I don't know what you're doing here. You're an overgrown ape, but I don't think you're going to get anything out of it. So I sat down, channeled Lao-Tzu immediately. He must have been a good teacher. And everyone was sitting around me in the class with little sticks and marshmallows, cooking them on the radiated effects of Lao-Tzu through my physical body. So it's like second to none. At that point, I'm 2 days in. I'm pretty much sure I'm insane. Like, I'm now hearing voices very clearly and seeing images. And I was like, you know what? I'll just keep going down this thing. So how is it for you physically when you transmit or embody Kryon? Do you have these sort of effects?
Everyone is different.
Yeah.
Very short, just to say, everyone is different. It truly is. And so what does it take to validate for you? Is it coincidences? Is it energy? Is it you feeling things, seeing things? Everyone is different. And so for me, from the very beginning, I got the double whammy. I'm an engineer. I had to have the double whammy. I couldn't have a peak or here and have to wonder about that and no. I had to be flattened with love, and I was totally. Every single time I start to channel Kryon, it's the same. It's home. For me, I don't measure it in any other way. I know when I'm there. People have said, well, you didn't channel on this show. Oh, yes, I did. Go back and listen and see whether you can find it. Because now it's starting to meld with the magnificence of Lee Carroll. And that's what I always was told. So that's my point.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of equates to a very similar experience. It's like, for me, what could have taken me a few minutes or an hour to acquire this state, it happens in a fraction of a second. Quite frankly, I'm as dumb as rocks. If anything comes out of my mouth, it's coming from the database of Lao-Tzu that I have any insight of anything.
Yeah.
But, this is part of merging with this currency and remembering who you are. And it just comes in all forms. It's like, I can't be more grateful to have new friends in my family, as in your family, and having you guys sharing your time with me today is absolutely amazing. I just very
delighted to. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And I just immediately, I was sharing that as soon as I saw the invitation come through and I clicked through, I felt a deep resonance with everything you represent. And I think when we are in that frequency of love, we recognize it instantly when someone else is aware of their frequency of love. That's what I'm just saying. We are always in the frequency of love. It's just our level of awareness, isn't it? And if there's anyone that you come across that is claiming to be a guru or wisdom or wise, the discernment factor really is, are they connected to the frequency of love? So if there's any ever doubts you have about anything in your life or anyone around you, that's always that question that I come back to. Are they connected to the frequency of love? That's how I use my discernment on yes or no. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And thank you again for letting us be here.
I'm so grateful for you, Monika. I'm so grateful for you, Lee. And this has just been amazing. I've just gone through the car wash of love, and I'm just enjoying every transmission. And it's just really, really powerful stuff that everyone should experience. Because I think what a lot of people, in a final note, actually, let me just get to it because I know we're going to close. What is your definition of spiritual consciousness?
Pure love. It has to be. Spiritual consciousness is based in love. That's the definition.
And for me, it's that phrase from Kryon that your name is known and sung in light. And it's that song of light. It's really the energy of love. And that song of light is being transmitted to each one of us 24/7. And imagine that you could actually sing light. What would that be like? We hear of people passing over and they hear the voice of the angels, but it's actually the song of light. Mm-hmm. And that is your name. Your name is sung in light. And to me, that whole feeling that everything evokes with that phrase, to me, is what represents spiritual consciousness.
That is amazing. I've done hundreds of podcasts. I've never heard the same answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we shouldn't, because it's our own journey experience to return to the same place, which is wholeness. And I'm just so full. My heart is full, and I'm very grateful that you guys have shared your time with me today. And I'm speechless. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Love and blessings.
And I want to thank you. I want to thank the universe for bringing you into my life. I want to thank the audience for sharing their time with us today. I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master San Qing, and I'll see you on the next one, guys.